Heaven is a really big place with a place just for you. Hey friends, it's Pastor Mike from Fellowship Church. Always enjoy connecting with you midweek. Hope you're having a wonderful week. Hope you know that we love you and pray for you regularly. That thought again, heaven must be a really big place, but with a special place just for you. Over the course of the last several weeks with these midweek messages, we've been talking about death. But we've been talking about death from a biblical perspective and really from a heavenly perspective. And we've talked about death being like a camping trip that ends, the tent is no more, and like death being an arrival, a departure and an arrival. But today I want to get you thinking a little bit about heaven based on some words that Jesus spoke, John chapter 14, when he's with his disciples, last night of his life. They had the Last Supper together. And then he says to them, we've covered this before, "In my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. And I go to prepare a place for you." I like that thought a lot. We'll talk about that one next week. But in my Father's house, there are many rooms. Well, what did Jesus mean about that? Well, in order to understand that passage, you really need to think a little bit more about life in Jesus' day. One of the things that was true about life in Jesus' day is that as young people grew up and met and were married, they did not go out and find their own place to live. That newly married couple did not have their own first apartment or their first house or any place else that was just their little honeymoon nest or anything like that. No, when a couple got married in Jesus' day, they pretty much always moved in with his parents. Right now, there's at least a couple of daughter-in-laws going, no way, no how, not in this life. But that was true in Jesus' day because they saw marriage as a way of expanding the groom's family. Everything kind of revolved around the groom's family. So when a groom, a young man, met and married his spouse, his wife, they added a room onto his father's house. And they were going to move into his father's house and live in that room. They would become part of the father's larger family. And as they had children, those children would become part of the father's family, his father's family. They even worked out things like a bride price that his family would pay her family for the loss of her. And we think that's where the whole practice began of a woman taking on her groom's last name because she's leaving her family and joining his family. So a father's house would grow and grow and grow some more. Lots of new rooms being added on as the young men in the family went out, married, and brought their wives and eventually children back. The father's house would continue to grow. So here's what Jesus meant by that. He said, heaven is a place where in my Father's house there are many rooms. What Jesus meant by that is that he was collecting his bride, Jesus being the Son of the Father. As death takes place, as the disciples and all the following generations were being brought up into heaven, Jesus being the groom would take his brides and bring them back to his Father's house and create a special room for them. So friends, here's the way that I view heaven. I know heaven might be the place of pearly gates and streets of gold and wonderful golf courses and all of that. Heaven is a place where there's a really, really, really big house. It's the Father's house. And in that house, there are many, many rooms. You won't have to share a bedroom like you did when you were a kid. In my Father's house, there are many rooms, and Jesus said, I'm going to prepare a place for you, and that you was singular in the way that Jesus said it. So here's what you'll have when you get to heaven. You'll have a room with your name on it. And I just have this idea, I can't prove it out, I have this idea that when we die here on planet Earth, a room is already finished in the heavens and there's a name on that room now. We get our own room. It's all for us and we are now fully part of the Father's family. So death is like a homecoming. It's the Father's family all being brought together. Maybe that's a good way to think about death. We always think about death as being a loss, but in heaven, death is a gain and we all get our own rooms. Hope that changes the way that you think of heaven. It certainly impacts the way that I think of heaven and impacts the way that I think of death, and it sure is a comfort to me. I hope it is to you as well. Folks, hope you have a wonderful week. Hope you know again that we love you and we pray for you. Hope you're taking good care of yourself. God bless. Have a good week. Bye-bye.